You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I have a special guest, one of hopefully 5 that will eventually come on to the show. But I'm here with Steven Jackson.
How's it going, Robbie?
So, Steven, please enlighten all these wonderful people out here and myself about what you do and like who you are, I guess.
I know I'm going to get flack from this right off the bat, but it's actually Stephen Jackson. But don't worry about that. I personally don't care. The only ones that really would care are my mom and my wife. So
Stefan's that's a more proper name. I like that for correcting me.
Yeah, it was. I didn't mean to correct you right off the bat. It's just something that is a line of debate.
Well, it's your name. It's like what people call you. It's like you want to be called correctly, man. I hate when people let me sit there and call them the wrong name. I'm like, no, slap me in the face, wake me up, and let me know my name is Stefan.
Well, I mean, going 36 years in this world, you hear it enough and you kind of like, all right, just go with the flow. That's just my personality as it is. But anyway, I have been born and raised in Arizona pretty much my entire life, with the exception of 4 years spent serving in the United States Navy. But like I said, I'm the oldest of 5 siblings that we all have our podcast, which is called We Know Some Things. It kind of drives into the things that we tell stories about ourselves, basically what we know, because we definitely don't know everything that there is to know. So we do our best to learn from each other, whatnot. But professionally, I am a certified NACE Level 1 coding inspector. Basically what that means is I am in charge of inspecting any type of surfaces that requires any type of coating, paint, sandblasting, whatever is needed from the job that it entails. So it could be anything from like a bridge to a metal door to a tank that holds water, pretty much anything along those lines. And
You're keeping America safe. One of the literally jobs that a lot of people do not know a lot about. You're the guy, or are you the guy that hangs off the bridges and kind of fixes like repairs, like cracks and stuff?
Not the actual repairs, but I'm making sure that it is up to standard before they actually move to actually the painting and the coating of it. So
that's even more important. Yeah. You got to be watching that type of stuff. I would hate to be on a bridge and then it just randomly collapse one day because some dude decided to take a Snapchat selfie with a crack on a wall instead of actually documenting it down as a problem we need to fix.
Yeah, it actually requires a huge attention to detail. And it's something that I had originally started when I was in the Navy. I was the bottom of the barrel, what they call a deck seaman that started, was in charge of the preservation of the ship. Basically, we made the ship look good. We busted rust, and sanded things down and then painted them when they were all done. And that's what we did when the ship was in port. When we were out at sea, we were more along the lines of the traditional seamanship things. We were in charge of anchoring, driving the ship, standing lookout, things like that, essentially.
I think a lot of people don't understand that we are pretty strong as a military force, but a lot of it goes into the looks. It all goes into kind of making the other person kind of a little bit afraid when it comes to the concept of we try and show our guns, much like a guy that dresses all buff. I guarantee you that guy probably does not know how to fight at all. Like you always want to be afraid of the ones that are really, really small and seem like they're not strong at all, because those are the ones that might know some stuff. And with the military, it's all display. We don't ever want to actually step into action. We don't actually want to be forced to like a battle or something. So we try and keep everything looking spick and span, red, white, and blue, big and true.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It was one of the things that when I was on the ship, I had 3 different captains on board, and every single one of them harped on making the ship look good because it's the first thing people see when they come on board. And being and it even took a larger effect after 9/11, today being the 18th anniversary. I was actually in basic training at the time. It was actually the first day that my division was to become official division, because prior to that, I had joined near the end of August, and it actually up until that point, everything was processing days. So you spend about 10 or so days where you're getting accustomed to learning how to march. You're getting all your shots. You're trying to build this sense of camaraderie with everyone that you're there with. But then once you're, again, like I mentioned before, you're learning attention to detail, because those are the things that save your life when it comes down to it. And when I moved after basic training and moved through my regular training and made my life on board a ship, I think 4 months later, um, everything that was ingrained in me up to that point was actually, I'd say, came to fruition in my mind. Okay, this makes sense. And of course, it's a lot of thankless work, but everyone realizes that, okay, you still want to look good, just like your mom wants you to clean your room when you're a kid, basically.
Yeah, if basically cleaning my room nowadays is just like me making my bed, it kind of makes everything display like a fake act. It makes it look like the room's actually cleaner than it is. It's crazy because you do a podcast with your siblings, and this is something like a lot of people hear like, wow, that's going to be hard to do a podcast with your family. It's the best part about it is it's interesting. See, sadly in the world today, very much so, families are being very disconnected. We see that connectivity just with average day people. But, I have friends that come from different ethnicities, different backgrounds. And the weird thing is when it comes to the average family, like me being white and these types of things, they do play a bit of a factor when it comes to family connection. My buddy just recently went to Honduras and his family's from there. And he talked about how it was so different being connected with like all of his cousins and everybody that are literally living all together in the same place. But there's a sense of wholeness, even if you're gone for a long time, which you probably might experience not seeing your family every single day. But still, when you go and see them again, it's like all that time that passed where you guys were living your own lives, you guys are just reconnected. It's like it never even happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, the oldest of five siblings, we were all born and raised on the San Carlos Apache Reservation here in Arizona. And the essence of family is that it's not just your immediate family, but a great branch of your extended family as well. So people I grew up with are my first cousins, second cousins, cousins from my parents, and they all had anyone who was my parents' age or grandparents' age, they held the exact same type of authority over you. So you can feel parents could feel rest assured that their kids were taken care of, basically.
Yeah,
They
I think it's really crazy is that we have to go and we like consider like, oh, Mexico or somewhere like this, they're very poor. And I'm like, they're rich in something completely different that us as Americans don't even really understand. And that comes from a lot of people here don't understand what it means when you say family. It doesn't just mean blood, but it means connectivity. We're so like the average family dinner used to happen. The average family that would have dinner maybe 7 nights a week together, 30 minutes or so sitting down, eating dinner and learning about each other's lives. It's now three nights a
mhm.
week. That scares the crap out of me. But I talked to my
Yeah.
buddy about this. He comes from a giant Latino family, and he goes and explains like, dude, we're always eating, we're always talking to each other. We're always around each other 24/7. There's just because they have a lot of them that live in the same house together. And I said, that's probably some of the best things you get to appreciate what it means by saying the word family, knowing that you have all these people that truly have your back, and then also realizing what's going on in each other's lives. Like, I couldn't tell you right now what's going on in one of my family members' lives. We're all so disconnected nowadays. It seems like
Mhm.
the phone's more important.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like I said, growing up on this reservation, it wasn't we weren't rich by any means, and way more on the opposite end of the spectrum, pretty poor, but we didn't realize that. We weren't aware of that. And there was this connection with family that helped basically mask our eyes in that sense to that realization. But I remember very, very young. One thing that I'm blessed with is a type of recall with my memory. But my family revolved around my great grandmother, Grandma Clark. Is what everyone referred to her. my grandmother's mom, basically. And she had actually had passed away when I was 5 years old, but she had 13 kids. And so imagine 13 children with their grandchildren attending not just a funeral, but because the reservation as a whole is its own community, um, all these people coming together. But it wasn't just for her funeral. Before that, we had as a family, we got together at Christmases, and she had a very small house by comparison to everyone else, but we still all managed to fit together and start like sardines. But it was at the same time very cozy. So one of her sons would dress up as Santa Claus, and they'd read passages from the Bible, and we'd all have our own little gift exchange going on. So it was a very, very close knit type of experience that I remember fondly.
Yeah, it really sucks. Like the fact, like nowadays, like it's just my grandma used to hold these dinners every like holiday. She used to do them once a month, right? It started off being once every 2 weeks. Then it was once a month. Now it's once every 6 months. Now it's at the point where it's like once every year and a half. And it's just to get a bunch of people together. But
Mhm.
even then, you saw it fade even dramatically inside of what it was first started as a bunch of people sitting down and eating together. You got to see your cousin's family and all this stuff. She works so hard on it. Now she just gets a bunch of food prepared, sets it out, lets them pick at whatever, and everybody just watches TV. Nobody talks anymore. I'm like, what was the point of doing this? Like
Yeah.
last Thanksgiving is the last time we had this dinner, and it's almost been a full year now. And I remember everybody sitting down and watching football, and I saw my grandmom on a tablet. My heart shattered because I was the only one at the dinner table with my grandfather. And we're just talking. I'm like, what happens to no phones, none of this, no TV on while we're eating dinner and we're just having a conversation like when I was a kid, like where I used to sit at the table till 3 o'clock in the morning because I did not eat my damn vegetables because I was drank 2 glasses of chocolate milk and filled up on that, you know? And I was like, what happened? And he's like, times change, man. And I'm like, no, no. And I refused. I got up, I grabbed my grandmom's tablet out of her hands, I turned it off, put it off to the side, said, come on, we're going to the table, jumped in front of the TV, everybody telling me, get out of the way, we're missing the game. Turned off the TV, dinner table, everybody dinner table. And it took me probably 15 minutes to get everybody to sit down, only on the concept of there was about 20 of us in the house.
Hmm.
We all sit down, and you saw in the first 5 minutes everybody shoveling food down their throat trying to get basically back to the game, back to where they were going before. But then once the conversation really started going and you found that connectivity again, we're learning about what's going on in each other's lives. Even when they were finished, they sat there with their arms crossed just listening to the stories. Like, you can get up if you want, and they're like, no, I'm good. I'm actually pretty interested in what's going on in your life right now. And I tell people, like, you need to do that. You shouldn't have a thing where you only come together on holidays and you only get to see these people. Yeah, I'm at fault for doing it myself. And I know people end up living completely different lives, but that connectivity is sometimes the most important because you find out like things about this. I remember I was talking to my grandfather. I was like, yeah, where's cousin Jim at? Like, I haven't seen him in forever. And he's like, dude, cousin Jim died like 2 years ago. I'm like, what? What do you mean cousin Jim died 2 years ago? Yeah, man. Who didn't tell you that? I was like, nobody let me know. I'm sorry. Oh, well, yeah, that happened like 2 years ago. And he glosses over it. I'm still sitting there like, I've been sending this guy Snapchats and he has not opened a single one of them for 2 years. That's probably why. And it really highlights the aspect of how disconnected we can get, especially from some people in our lives that are supposed to be so intimate.
Absolutely. And that's again part of the reason why we started the podcast, because we actually, all five of us live off the reservation right now. Most recently, my youngest sister Kaya recently moved to the next town over, so she's still rather close, and she does work on the reservation. But it's still something that we're all disconnected. When I described my great grandmother and her family, that's we're still all know each other. We're all friends on social media and things like that, but we don't get together nearly as often as we used to by comparison. But we still do in large quantities. Like my grandfather has become like the person everyone focuses their attention around now. I mean, he's in his late 80s, has early onset Alzheimer's, but we all do our best, especially my sister Nicole, to just make him feel comfortable. He lives with my Aunt Erna, or kind of vice versa. My Auntie Erna still stays and cares for him along with my Auntie Betsy. But it's usually a lot of us coming together just to enjoy each other's company, because the last time, I'd say a couple weeks ago, my sister went back home and just cooked up this big meal with a few others as well. And it was like a, a congregation of 20 or so people enjoying each other's company. So
Yeah.
on a grand, it still happens, but on a smaller scale. And it's still intimate in that sense, and where you enjoy each other's company.
Let's be 100% honest here. I mean, you're not meant to, I mean, be around your family 24/7. If there was all of you in the house for a month straight, nobody ever leaving and just conversating around each other, at one point someone's reaching for a butter knife. Okay, that happens with every single family. And I tell people, like, it doesn't mean you can't connect with your own family. Not even seeing each other every single day, just make the time to plan a week out, maybe every month or something. Keep that in there. Don't keep pushing it back like, sorry, can't make it this time. Make sure you show up, even if you're sick, because I guarantee you, I've made it to some of those family dinners and stuff when I was sick. My grandma just added onto the menu, hey, we have chicken noodle soup that's homemade. Oh, thank you so much. It's
Mhm.
like, you have these moments, like, you understand, like, you want to connect with these people. It shouldn't be over social media where you just see a Facebook post from, one of your siblings saying they just had a kid and you like it. Oh, awesome. Great to be an uncle. It's like, what? Like, go see the kid. Go out and do stuff. Like, you need to be connected into each other's lives, because you're going to remember those moments when you were a little kid. Like, you stole my what? And then you get into a fight with your sibling. Like, there are so many moments nowadays I do miss not having, like, I haven't hung out with my dad in a couple of years. And it's like, because he goes and lives a whole nother life. And it's
Mhm.
like, I miss the times when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, and I was going on a camping trip with him. And we were eating seafood, crabs by a bonfire at 2 o'clock in the morning, when I should have been getting ready to go to school the next day. But my dad was like, we're going to go on a vacation here. And we're sitting there talking. And it was like stuff I don't really remember what we were saying, but it was that connection where every time I see him, every time I think of him, I have these moments in my head, these memories, and they're the best moments of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of stuff to remember fondly. Like I said, I have a highly detailed memory that my sister always praises, and he says I remember a lot of the small things growing up. But in the same manner, if my mom had her own way, we'd still, all five of us would be living under the same roof. So, but again, right now, like I said, as adults, we all lead different lives. We're all spread out. My sister currently is at a seminar in Columbus, Ohio. My other sister is actually returning to work tomorrow after being on medical leave for the last 3-4 months due to some things that I'm not able at liberty to say right now. We're actually hopefully going to announce it on our podcast regarding that. And then
Oh,
my brother
just
is.
a heads up, this probably come out in a
Mhm.
couple weeks. It doesn't go up live or anything.
Oh, no worries.
But
No.
it's interesting because, like, right now what you just told me is more information than I could tell you about anybody that I literally see on a daily basis in my own household. Only on the concept of everyone is so, like, we get it. Life is kind of tough. We get stuck in these comfortable environments. It seems like the only way people, like friends, really hang out anymore is one of two options. At least my age, being 21, like, they're either going out to the bar and drinking, which helps them get out of the house and go do something, or it's just they have to do a podcast or something where they have this, like, feels like they're required to do something. I swear, if, like, for me on my day off, I haven't left the house at all. Like, besides getting groceries and getting gas in my car, I have not left the house because I don't feel obligated to do anything anymore besides, do this. And it's the whole concept of, we're afraid to go explore out into the world anymore because it's so damn easy just to shut the door off and be alone. And we wonder why, like, depression starts hitting kids at younger and younger ages. It's because we're not connecting anymore. We have a social skill in our, like, human being, our human nature, just like eating is a requirement,
Mhm.
socializing is a requirement, man. When you just look for the acceptance on social media, like that like or that share, it might pass a little bit of give you that acceptance, but It's not like sitting down and explaining your problems to a family member or something, because it truly resonates inside of them because they honestly truly care deep down.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, our our connection to each other isn't just because we want to be close. It's like we have an inherent desire to care about each other as well. Aside from just this podcast, we have our own siblings chat that we interact with on a daily basis. So we're constantly putting new things out there to each other, telling each other certain news of what's going on, ribbing each other, giving each other crap about certain things and whatnot. Because let's face it, you mentioned it before, but I always like to say, get us together individually, and for the most part, we're at each other's throats. But the great thing about us is that when you put us together as a whole, I always like to say nobody can touch us.
Yeah, the truest aspect shows like I have an older brother, but me and him never really got along. But I knew that if anybody picked on me, my brother was there immediately, like, hey, only I mess with my brother. Like that whole thing. Like, I don't know what I could do just because I was younger, if I could help him out in a situation like that. But it didn't matter if we just got into arguments. We stand at each other's backs. Like family is everything. And it's not only blood. I have a best friend that is practically my brother. He lost a brother due to an addiction of opioids. And I remember for him to open up to me was on my birthday. I'm born on New Year's Eve. So on a podcast, we're sitting there drinking Jack Daniels. I'm not a big drinker, but he's sitting there drinking. And this is when I say alcohol is beneficial in the way it helped him open up in a way where he was on the podcast like, man, I might have lost a brother, dude, but you're my fucking brother. I gained one. And I was like, I had that moment with him where I was like, wow, like it really, really impacted me in my head. I mean, his mom treats me like her son. They invite me over to do these family dinners. And I don't, just because both my parents worked all the time, I didn't come from a really connected family. It seems like everybody was
Mhm.
off doing their own thing. So hearing like, hey, you want to come over and play a board game? You want to come over and have a dinner? I'm like, that's weird. Like I always found it in a weird aspect. And they know that it like that kind of comes from that. They understand like I do my own thing and I'm kind of more independent. And they work with me on it. They're like, well, the option's always on the table. Remember, you're always welcome. And just
Mhm.
having that there really highlights the aspect. Like when people always go, yeah, but they're your adopted parents. They're not your real parents. I'm like, that doesn't mean shit. You could be your
Absolutely.
adopted family. If you grow up around them, you create a bond with someone, you create a relationship. That's why you see every movie that happens to do with a kid that is adopted into a family or a foster home. He like if he gets picked on at whatever the park or something, his adopted family comes to his side. Immediately. It's that sense of like an instinct inside of us to care not only about people deep down, but to care about our own.
Absolutely. You mentioned that. Uh, my my two best friends in the world could actually go to my mom's house without me being there, and they'd get a full course meal. My mom would probably break out the cast iron skillet and make some fried bread and beans for them. So,
That's how my buddy is. I was at school one time, and I was my senior year. He did the like his class was literally like he got to go on work leave, so he just went to actual work because he got all his credits. And he does HVAC. My back door at my old house never locked, so my dad was upstairs sleeping. And he goes into my house and starts taking pictures of my dogs and sending them to me. And I'm sitting on my phone in class and I'm looking on my phone. I'm like, this kid's in my house right now. This guy's that's my dog. Whoa. He's opening a bowl of cereal and just sitting down and eating it. And I messaged him. I was like, dude, my dad's home right now. He goes up and my dad's sleeping, like kind of napping. He goes up, takes a picture of my dad, and then sends it to me. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? And like it was so funny because I was just like, I can't leave class right now. I have to wait until like class is over before I can go. And I'm like, I just wanted to get home and just like it was just so funny. And my dad actually talked to me about it later. He's like, were you home earlier? And I was like, no, that was Skylar. He just goes, oh, okay. And I'm like, what happened? Like, that doesn't freak you out? He goes, no, he's practically over here all the time. I mean, there was one point where you spent every single day during summer over at his house. And I had to text you and say, do you need me to buy you a toothbrush? Like, are you staying over there forever? Like, do you need more clothes? And he just kept dropping me off items. His dad was like, look, Robbie, I'm going to teach you how to work our shower. And I'm like, what? He goes, you've been here for a couple weeks now, and I'm not saying it to say it, but you stink. And I was like, okay. So like, he's teaching me how to use the shower and everything. And he's like, I lived up there a whole summer. It was not even a thing. There was no problem at all. His family treated me just like family. We're having dinner. We're playing Monopoly. We're doing this. I'm like, let's do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And my two best friends come from different walks of life. My friend Kevin is an actor now in Los Angeles, but when I first met him, my senior year in high school, he actually came from Michigan. His dad was a pastor, and he had essentially taken a call to one of the churches in Gilbert. And I played football, and he volunteered to be the manager of the team just to interact with people more. And we hit it off and been best friends since. And my other one, I met him. He actually came to the ship when I was in the Navy, found out that we could connect over, that we were both from Arizona, and lived in the Phoenix area. And like I said, we've been super close ever since as well. And I could go to each of their parents' house and do pretty much the exact same thing you had mentioned. His mom will always want to cook for me. I think a couple of weeks ago, his car was totaled, and we had to go to his parents' house to find the title. And this was at 10:30 at night, and his mom was like, "Hey, let me make you some food."
That's funny because like my one buddy, he gave me the key to his house, so I'll just randomly show up at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something and walk through the front door, and his mom will be like in the kitchen getting ready for work. She'll just look over at me like, "Oh, hey, what's up, Robbie?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And just walk in like it's nothing now. And I remember I explained that to like my own family, and they're like, "What is wrong with you? Like, she didn't stab you with a butter knife or didn't stab you with some type of knife, like thinking you were some criminal?" I was like, no, I was like, because I don't know, there's just that connection that we had. Like, there's a point where like I can always go over there. I always have a spot. I always have a place. And it's like the only person that really freaks out when I would do that is his dog. He has a little tiny chihuahua, which I don't understand why he has. But as soon as I come through the door, I'm like, dude, you've seen me a million times and you're still freaking out about me. He's like, yeah, I don't know. And it just keeps hopping off, like doing the little sketchy chihuahua thing. But it's funny you have those people in your life, you know, they're not your blood family, but they're family.
Mm-hmm.
What types of things with your podcast do you try and really connect out there to other audiences, showing them that like a family kind of gets together?
Yeah, but it's just more so our mix of personalities come together. Like I said, we originally started it for our family back home on the reservation, and they could always differentiate each of us by our set personalities. A lot of people say they mix my brother and I up because we sound alike, and it could be said similarly of my sisters as well, because we range from 37 to 26 years in age. And a lot of, like I said, we grew up on the reservation. We rewatched movies a ton. We spent our time outside in the desert, in riparian habitats, spending time along the rivers during the summer. I went fishing a lot because my grandfather worked at the local dam, and my grandmother was our teacher. So we all had that in common, essentially. And it's a lot of reminiscing on stories, speaking on specific family members not that we don't love them, but we just want to shine a specific light on and bring up certain memories. Most recently, we've been touching on the aspect of food because we all love to eat. Most of us love to cook, and we actually recently had a taco challenge that was posted on our Instagram. And it wasn't so much that who was the best, because it's already been established that my sister is probably the best cook out of all of us. But it was an avenue for my brother, who is the youngest, to realize that, hey, cooking is a type of escape, or something that you can actually enjoy instead of it being a chore.
Yeah, changing your perspective on things too. But there's always that competitive aspect when it comes to family. I feel like whenever you get me and my brother in a room, like not even 10 minutes into like, oh man, it's awesome seeing you. How's everything been? You know, I miss you. Like 10 minutes later, we're literally like, dude, I could totally beat you in that. You want to arm wrestle? you want to arm wrestle? I'm like, what are we doing? Dude, we're grown ass adults now, but we hop into that kid mentality. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
there's always that little competitiveness in there, but it's fun competition, not like you're really trying to intentionally be like, you suck. Well, there is that too. Me and my brother do kind of talk trash on each other in a way, but it's more like just finding a way. Like we slip back into how we used to be when we were kids. Like there were times, like my brother is 4 years older than me. So, when I was 11 and he was 15 was like around the last times we really stopped hanging out together, because he was just going off and doing his own things with his friends. He was going to the beach. A little bit older, like he's 15, I'm 11. He's going and experiencing, learning how to drive and stuff. This is like the last times we get to hang out together. And like, it was weird, because the only times we really reconnected was like maybe 5 or so years later, him being 22, moving, like he moved out when he was 18. And I just like, I didn't like, it seemed like right when he was moving out was when we started getting connected again. And then I didn't see him for, I saw him on occasion, like doing family type meetings and stuff. But man, when he moved back in, it was like, he lived next to me again, and we started like connecting again. It was awesome because I was older. This is around the time, I was in my kind of high school years. So I'm in my senior, junior year. I started experimenting with a little bit of the Mary J. And it was a way of us to kind of connect together. Like, cause it was like, hey man, are you going to school? And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting ready right now. He's like, oh, no, you're not. We're going to sit and we're going to like play video games all day and eat taquitos. I'm like, let's do it. I'm like, Mom, not going to school. I'm not feeling good. And then shut the door and we're playing video games all day. Like it was a type of connection. Like we used to live next to a small little like gas station type store called Walgreens, and they have these things, Arizona tea, you get 2 for $1. So
Mm-hmm.
we used to walk down there. I throw a buck down. Next thing you know, my brother grabs the grape one, I grab the watermelon one, and we just go upstairs and start playing video games. Like I remember whenever he looked at me, he was like, taquitos? I was like, taquitos. He just grabbed a giant one of those like turkey dinner plates, the really long, big ones, and he would line up the whole box of taquitos. And as we're playing games, we're working our way down from end to end, like just going until finally it gets to the one last taquito in the middle, and it turns into like a fight. But it was the best. Like those were moments in my life. Like I look back on, and like not seeing him now that much, because, he lives his own life. He does a bunch of stuff, and we work all the time now, and he has his own kid. It's crazy to see, like, it doesn't matter how long we may be apart. I know when we get together, there's that times just, it's going to go back to how we were before, just being brothers, man. I remember he was the one person I really wanted to podcast with. And we're podcasting for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And he's like, you know me. I'm like, I know you, man. Let me introduce you to the people out here. And he goes, yeah, well, I do music, I do this. And I'm like, you don't really seem like you're about talking about it. He goes, it's hard to talk to you. You're my brother. It's hard to get in a conversation like you want out
Mm-hmm.
of this, because we know each other so much. And I'm like, what is your fondest moment ever in your life? And I said that to him, and he's like, I remember when you were brushing your teeth, and so was Dad, and you reached over to spit in the sink. And at this time I had really curly hair, and my dad spit on top of my head, and it went all in my hair. And he goes, that was probably the best moment in my life. I'm like, oh, so having a kid wasn't one of those? And he goes, no, it's up there. But I'm telling you, that was the funniest moment in my whole entire life. And I was like, wow, great. Nice to know this. My dad spitting in my hair was was your turning point in life that made you, love to live.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My sister Nicole and I actually were born 10 months or 11 months apart, and so we're very, very competitive in that aspect. There were times in grade school where we were in the same class, and so it was everyone's competitive nature to our competitive nature came out. Where Nicole raised her hand, Stefan raises his hand. Stefan got an A on the class, and Nicole got an A minus. Nicole works harder to get an A plus that Stefan didn't have, basically, and it led to a certain type of animosity toward each other. But as adults, we tend to grow out of it or move back into it, because to be honest, it's not all fairy tales that we're friends at the same time. Because, like I said, we're at each other's throats. Some things get said that really piss each other off, and we're not speaking for a little bit.
you display the real Jackson 5, the one with all the problems a little bit. You show the true aspect of what it means to actually be family. There's going to be bickering, there's going to be arguments, but at the end of the day, you all have each other's backs, and I find that so awesome.
Absolutely. And again, we're again, just like anyone else in this world. We're very, very similar in a lot of senses. People will say, "Oh, a lot of our relatives are back home." Well, hear a voice and off in the distance, and I'll say, "Oh, is that something Stefan or Nicole would do?" No, it's something Tyrell and Kaya would do. And in the end, it's still something that connects us to each other. But we're still vastly different people. We all have our different personalities. Me being the oldest, I tend to try to get things, do things so I don't get in trouble. Because let's face it, regardless of how good I was as a kid, I was judged on my siblings. So if they screwed up, that basically meant that I got in trouble as well because I wasn't watching them. And the other end of the spectrum, my brother still can get away with a lot of things because he's the baby. And there's my middle sister Abby, who is just straight middle child syndrome, but she's got her own personality to the point that everyone loves her personality and loves her sense of humor. And a lot of people think that she's the favorite of our siblings when it comes to our audience because of her type of humor. When she wasn't feeling good one day, and I asked her on the podcast what I was doing, her response was, "I'm just dying faster than everyone else." So
It's crazy because, like, in my family, my brother was seen as like A's in school, performer, musician, all these things. He had everything going for him. I was like F's, D's, slacking, class clown, need to see your parents. This is report card, need to have this meeting. And I was always the one, like the troublemaker. And then when like we became older, our kind of personalities changed. Like my brother became lazy. I became more of like going to college, first person in my family to do so. I did it out of spite, to be 100% honest with you, because I had so many people tell me I was not college material. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to college. Thank you. And
oh,
but whether my grandma used that to kind of bolster me to go, that was good on her because she knows I have a problem with authority. I come to the fact, like, if you tell me to do the dishes, I will not do the dishes, but I'll do them on my own. But I always get that backhanded compliment. Like, I do the dishes. Oh, but you didn't put them away. I just grab every single dish and lick it and put it right back in. Like, bam. Sorry. I have that little fight inside of me. I still kind of hold it from when I was a kid. I mean, I had ADHD. Like, me and my brother are half siblings. So we come from two different dads.
mhm.
And like just having that bit of a change, like there's differences, huge differences in our personalities. But whenever someone sees me and my brother side by side, they go, oh, like you guys can tell you're related. You guys look alike. And we just look at each other like we don't see it because he looks like his dad. I look like my dad. But they're like, no, because we took a picture on Christmas Eve and it was my mom in the middle, my brother on one end, and me on the other end. And you could tell the common link was my mom. Like our facial features, all three of them matched up. Like, and it was crazy to see that because throughout my life, like whenever I said who my brother was, people were like, "That's your brother?" I'm like, "Yeah, like that's my brother." And then I get like a bunch of respect because no one knew. We didn't have the same last name. We didn't have like anything that made us look anything alike. So it was just that difference, but that connection that made us whole. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We get it a ton. I always get like straight up because I have glasses. Oh, you look like your dad. But then someone who's never seen my dad will always say, "Oh, you look just like your mom." And it's the same thing with my siblings. "Oh, you look just like your mom." "Oh, wait, you look just like your dad." And it's something that we can never escape. But it's when they finally get to know us as an individual, they really say, "Okay, you're like your dad, but then you're way different." It's it's funny to laugh at right now because, like I said, we all have our own different personalities. Like I said, I do my best to follow the rules. I do my best to just being, as someone would say, being a Capricorn. You're hard headed, but you kind of stick to your values. Whereas all three girls are born in November, and so they have that going with them. They stick together in a certain sense, and because my brother's the youngest, he's born in July. And the funny thing is that because we love movies, we tend to attach everything to movies as well. And his birthday is July 14th. And so the running joke is that he's a Con Air baby, because there's a line that Cyrus Grissom, John Malkovich's character, says in the movie that what Nicolas Cage's daughter wrote to him is that my daddy is coming home on July 14th. My birthday is July 14th. I'm going to see my daddy for the first time on July 14th. So it's something that we can always put together in each other's minds. They are actually, all five of us, we can have a conversation using nothing but movie quotes. It is awesome.
Yeah, that type of, this is secret language siblings have too sometimes. Like, when someone's being serious, and when you might have stepped over a boundary. They say a certain word, you're like, oh, I'm in trouble now. I said something I shouldn't have. And you always know their most crucial flaw too. Like, the one thing they think about the most, that like if you just say, it's immediately going to cause tension. Like I did, as being the younger sibling. Like, my neighbor was I was friends with the littlest one and the middle one and the older one. So it was crazy to see, like, the kid was my age, but kind of 6 months behind me. And his older brother was my brother's age. And then his oldest brother was like 4 years above him. So seeing that, I always wanted the oldest brother. I always wanted someone that was older than the brother I had, because I wanted them to humble him whenever he started beating me up. Because there was always that test of a younger sibling, like him telling me what to do. And I'm like, you don't tell me what to do. He's like, what? I'm like, what are you going to do about it? And next thing you know, I'm on the ground like, I'm sorry. And it's, but it was like, I always wanted that there, because I remember hanging out with him and then him doing something crazy. He's like, get in the house, man. Mom said, get in the house. And his name was Ian. He goes, I'm not going in the house. Ian, get in the house. Next thing you know, the brother comes over, grabs him, starts basically dragging him by like the neck all the way into the house. And I'm like, well, looks like I'm going home. And then all you see is the eldest brother come out. What are you doing? That's your little brother, and just slap the middle brother. And I'm like, I wish I had that. I wish I had that intervene, that thing. I wanted to come from a Malcolm in the Middle childhood.
Oh yeah, I would tease my brother all the time. I wouldn't exactly bully him, but we grew up watching pro wrestling a ton, or I was told that I couldn't watch it, but I still found my ways to watch it, and I was notorious. Notorious for putting all the wrestling moves on everything. My favorite was the sharpshooter, Bret Hart's finishing move, and I just love the leg lock aspect and putting pressure on their spine. So even then, as kids, that's something that I always would put my brother in a headlock, or I put him in some type of submission hold on the floor. And it's funny when the tides turn, because that's something that propelled him into wanting to work out and become stronger. So it came to the point where, because he could when he was in his young 20s, or maybe even in high school at 18, because he played football and he worked out a ton, that he could actually turn the tide on me and pin me to the ground and whatnot. And with my youngest sister, doing, as you mentioned, saying something that would touch something serious. Even just yesterday in our sibling chat, I had posted a Michael Myers meme, because Halloween is coming up next month, and it's my October is my sister's favorite month. But Michael Myers scares the living daylights out of her, and all this time I thought it was just the Halloween music, because it's creepy and eerie and whatnot. I would tease her, and she hates it that on October 1st, I used to call her and do nothing but play the Halloween music. And she would just hang up, throw the phone, and be pissed off the rest of the day. But I didn't realize that it was also Michael Myers. So when I posted that meme to her, she's like, I tell you time and time again not to post him. And like I said, it's a realization that comes hand in hand with being that close. And okay, I'll stop, because I know what it actually entails.
You also know their weaknesses, man. Let me tell you something. That movie Pet Cemetery came out. Have you ever seen this movie? Not the newest one, but the older version.
Oh yes, we grew up with it.
There was that older woman talked about, or the wife that talked about her mom that was sickly ill and was like blue in bed and going like looked like a zombie in a way, or it was her older sister. And I used to do that impression because my brother would get scared of that. And I remember I was crawling on Christmas Eve into my brother's room on like this, like kind of like the Grudge type thing. And I just popped up on his bed and went like in the thing. And he screamed. I knew exactly what to torment him with. Like that was me getting back at him. And it's funny because, being the youngest sibling, I was the test run for everything that nobody wanted to see what would happen first. So they were like, I remember every injury I have, you can kind of chalk up to my brother in a way, like all in good fun. It wasn't intentional, but like I broke my arm when my brother was like, I wonder how cool it would be if we put a sprinkler under the trampoline. And next thing you know, I was like, hey, Robbie, hop on this real quick. I hop on the trampoline, sprinkler goes under the trampoline. I flip off the trampoline. Then Father's Day, my dad always says, thank you for making it the best Father's Day ever. I got stitches on Father's Day. My brother was like, I'll beat you to the house. And I'm like, you're not going to beat me to the house. He goes, once I get in there, I'm going to lock it. And then he runs. And as he's closer to the door, so I'm running as fast as I possibly can to get in there before him. And I tripped over one of those garden, like the brick things that have the point to it, like a little garden fence, right into my kneecap. And my dad literally just got home from work and literally came out of the car, like kind of stretched, and he looked over, saw me trip and fall and get stitches, and he just goes, no way. And I looked at his face and his arms just dropped to his side. And he just goes, like he wasn't even going to let the keys go out of his hand. He was like, I'm about to have to drive this kid to the hospital. And it shows like when you try and like as a younger sibling, I would act like sometimes after he would hit me, I would be like, all right. Like I'm hurt. Like I'd act like I'm hurt, even though I might not be. And it came into play when I broke my arm because I'm army crawling. We were at our neighbor's house and I'm army crawling across the ground screaming because I have no idea what's wrong. And my dad goes, I remember when that happened because your brother kept kicking you the whole time thinking you were faking it. And you're just army crawling to the house and he's just, get up, faker. Get up, get up, get up. And then like when you made it actually pretty close to the house is when he realized he actually hurt you. And I was saying he ran. And it was funny because like I hear that and he goes, man, you're just making me look bad. I'm like, no, dude, it's funny because like the whole way, you don't even remember the trip to the hospital, man. The whole way I was worried about my arm. My dad put a sock over it. Like his sock fit my whole arm. And I mean, I was little at the time, like 6 or 7. And we're driving to the movies, or not movies. We're driving to the hospital, and we're looking outside. I remember it was like a movie. I saw like certain details of things in my memory. Like there were shoes hanging on a telephone wire. We were playing I Spy the whole time. My brother helped me get my mind off of it, helped me do so many things. And then I paid him back when he was in the room when the doctor reset my arm and he passed out, and I laughed my ass off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of things along those lines happened more recently within the last couple of years because last year my brother actually was deployed to Afghanistan and didn't come home till uh, sometime in April. But he was actually in Kuwait at the time, having already left Afghanistan, and it was a big thing for him that he got to watch Avengers Endgame before everyone else did because they'd opened up a day earlier in Kuwait compared to the U.S. And when he finally touched back down on American soil in El Paso, it was actually Mother's Day, and we all 5 of us we touched on this on one of our episodes where we took our mom and drove from Phoenix to El Paso, pretty much driving all night. The girls left the night before, where I took my mom and my sister's boyfriend that night, driving her just so we can meet my brother, which we hadn't seen over a year. And it felt great. We're all of us united together. And he was insistent that we all watch a movie because it was the first time all 5 of us were together in a movie theater since probably Lord knows when, since in like 1990 and the mid 90s or the late 90s, where we probably watched, we had mentioned The Lion King before. It could have been probably after that, maybe Mulan or something along those lines. But it was a huge deal where I tried to get an episode together where all of us were there, but we did so much in such a very short amount of time that it was very hard to do, but I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. And it helped my brother, like, hey, I'm home, my family's here. When he finally got back to Arizona, he's like, I haven't seen anything more beautiful in my life. And it kind of ticked his girlfriend off, but she's family too. But in the sense that, all right, we're here again, we're back united, even though we still have our own lives. It's a great relationship.
There's a movie on Netflix about a family. The guy figures out he's adopted, and he actually comes from like a couple, like five other siblings. You got to look it up. I forgot what it's called. It's with the guy that played in the movie Haunted House.
Was it? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I'm not as good as remembering movies as I used to
He
be
played it. He
because
played
we've
in
got
White
Netflix.
Chicks. He played in White Chicks. I forgot what his name is. He had a show called Martin on Netflix.
Oh, what was it? Marlon Wayans?
Yeah, Marlon Wayans. So he has a movie about finding out comes from a big family, like all these siblings. He's reconnecting with each and every sibling, and they're all different, but they're all like Norbit style, like Eddie Murphy in different costumes. That's what the movie is. It's literally him looking like a woman and looking like all these things, but it shows like throughout the story, they're like learning about each other, they're connecting to each other, but they're doing anything because they're family. And it shows like it doesn't matter if you knew each other your whole entire lives. It doesn't matter if you just met. It's all about like deep down, you have a deep connection that never fades away, no matter if you're super far apart or if you come together. You always remember those moments. You always remember like just being connected to someone. And like you get to see in the movie him like talk about like, I like this. And he goes, you like that show? I like that show. He goes, I wonder where that comes from. And they're like questioning it. It's like, no, it's because it's in your genes. It's in the connection that you guys have deep, deep down, even though you might have never met before.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's just something that um, a similar thing happened recently. Is that once he started working again, my sister Abby and I are beginning Stranger Things. Nicole and Kaya not so much, simply because it doesn't interest them, but we're hampering away on them. Hey, it's something that you like, especially I would think my sister Nicole would like because we're born and raised in the '80s. It could bring back that nostalgia that we all enjoy, but little by little, I hear my brother, all right, I'm on the third episode of Stranger Things. And then somewhere down the line, may not be immediately, but somewhere down the line, I imagine the other two are going to jump on that bandwagon simply because it's, all right, I don't want to be the one left out. And it's, if like, for example, four of us watch a movie, the fifth one is going to write, all right, I better watch it just so I don't feel left out and want to be included in that aspect. So it probably would be the same thing for me because I think three of them have watched Hobbs and Shaw, and it's something that just hasn't interested me yet, but I probably will in the short term, especially if my youngest sister, who hasn't seen it, will probably watch it. But that and a ton of other things, movies and food is pretty much what brings us all together.
It's like when you go to a restaurant and someone's all deciding where to eat, and then like, yeah, three people raise their hand for Applebee's and you want to raise your hand for Fridays, but you end up raising your hand for Applebee's because everybody else is kind of going in that direction anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny. There's a town outside of the reservation where we grew up that is known for its Mexican food, and in my opinion, or in our opinion, I would say, because I honestly believe I speak for them when it comes to this, is that it's the best type of Mexican food in the world compared to what we've had. Now, there are different types of Mexican food in and of itself, but when it comes to this type, it's labeled as mine type Mexican food. And so when it comes to, they have a few restaurants that are related to those restaurants in that town here in the East Phoenix area. Everyone will say, okay, let's go to Casa. It's called Casa Reynoso. And the second someone mentions that, all right, I'm in, let's go. And then where are you guys going? Oh, we're going to Casa. The third one hops in. And next thing you know, my sister, coming from an hour and a half away, is like, hey, I'm coming to have dinner with you guys at Casa. And hey, we're missing one more. Let's go.
I'm telling you, man, the connectivity you get through family, like it needs to, I really hope that people start realizing these moments that they need to cherish. Like my little cousin that's on his tablet or on his phone at the dinner table and not even associating with his family anymore. I'm like, dude, you don't want to get nostalgia and memories off your phone. You want to have them with the family around you. Because that connectivity you get, even when you're 40, 50 years old, it might have been 30 years after you experienced it, you're still going to remember those moments. And you're going to want to spark that into your own family as well.
Absolutely, it's something that my you hear from my mom, my aunts, my uncle, and very fond memories that they have with their cousins and the people that they grew up with, their immediate family. Because it wasn't just us growing up together. We spent time with my uncle Chat's kids, my cousin Cy, and also my grandma's youngest brother, his kids, who are all in our same close to our same age bracket as well. But kids were in the neighborhood. There were kids that we didn't get along with, some that were neighborhood bullies and things like that. But it was funny that living in the desert, you could always find a way to avoid everyone else, even though it was still a very small community that everyone interacted with each other still. But to this day, my uncle would still tell stories that with he and his cousins playing war with bottle rockets, shooting them at each other at Fourth of July parties.
The best moments I've ever had was playing Roman candle fights. I mean, you were basically aiming for the person's eyes. You didn't want to admit it, but it was true. You were trying to take them out. And Stefan, I really appreciate you doing my podcast, man. It's been awesome talking to you, dude. Especially like you enlightening me of what it comes from, like a bigger family, something where I kind of wanted to be like one of like many siblings.
Hey, I appreciate having thank you for having me on and whatnot. But I'll do my best to get my siblings on. I'm sure that once they hear this go live, I know I can get my brother on and probably my middle sister
You gotta
Abby.
you gotta talk trash on them, so they have to come on here and they have to feel forced to talk trash back.
Oh, they know that they can own me any which way possible, but
Just
it's
send
just a
them a
matter
message
of
like,
it's.
"Look, I went on this podcast and I immediately talked crap on you." And then like next thing you know, they're like, "All right, I'm gonna get on this podcast."
Well, my sister Kaya was the one that runs our Instagram, so she brought it to our attention. And then all of a sudden, my sister Abby, I nominate James just because we all have
Yeah,
different nicknames for each other. James
you
is my middle
literally
name,
you
and
sent me a message. I was nominated out of one of the five siblings. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This isn't the Grammys, bro. This isn't prestigious. You're not getting a medal or a trophy. I'm like, we all have a voice, man. We all matter. And like you sent it to me and it made me feel so like professional. It's like, I own a business. I should start buying suits. It was it was so awesome, dude. I really appreciate it, man, because it was just being able to talk to you for this little bit, man. I am hopeful that your family would come on because it would be awesome to get everybody's experience for sure.
I will do my best. And again, thanks for having me on. This has been a real treat. I like to listen to other podcasts and whatnot. I've subscribed to yours since we first realized your message and listened to a lot of episodes. But another one I like to listen to is hosted by Michael Rosenbaum. He played Lex Luthor in the TV show Smallville. It's called Inside of You.
I
And he
remember
also,
Smallville. Trust me, I remember that show and Heroes were my favorite.
yeah, Smallville is my favorite, tied with How I Met Your Mother. But yeah, his it's called Inside of You, and so every episode he likes to say, "So and so, thank you for letting me be inside of you," and it's just innuendo at its finest, but it still rings true because a lot of people tell things that are true, and I really enjoyed that here.
Keeping the real aspect of things, man. I want to give you a minute here at the end to kind of promote your podcast. So when this goes up, people can find your awesome content and your amazing stories with your family.
All right. Well, our podcast is called We Know Some Things. We don't necessarily have a lot of episodes, but we try and do it on the regular. Right now, work is preventing us from finding a time to do it. But it's myself. I'm the oldest. My sister Nicole, my sister Abby, my sister Kaya, and my youngest brother Tyrell. And it's all of us with different walks of life, different stories, but you can tell it's all of us being siblings, and that's what brings us all together. And we hope you guys listen to a few episodes, hopefully subscribe. But you can find us on social media, Facebook page, We Know Something's podcast, or Instagram. My sister, like I said, my sister Kaya runs that one. She does a great job of it. But yeah, check us out.
Thank you so much for being on this episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.